Okay, I think I'm streaming now. Alright, so it's been a while since my last stream, and there's very good reason for that, which we'll get into shortly. But I'm going to start off talking about these. The draconic reactors. So for the first couple of days of my non-streamingness, I kind of got a little obsessed with these things and making them perfect. See, I noticed something rather interesting with these things. As time went on, the containment field strength started to go down, and without manual intervention, they would eventually overload. And struggled to figure out why that was. Did all sorts of tests and experiments to try to figure out why that was happening. And then I realized this number was not changing. It was around 3 million ticks per minute, or RF per tick. And that wasn't changing at all. And I realized that the issue wasn't with like my code or with, well, I suppose technically it was with the code, but the issue wasn't with like wasn't with like the integrated dynamics, it wasn't with reactor. It was with the cable that I was using to power it. It was with this cable here. Originally I actually had the mechanism power conduits. Yeah, these things here, universal cables, which actually have a limit of, well, that capacity there that lists is actually apparently its limit. It's what it can handle throughput. So I upgraded them to the superconductors, which have a limit of about 4 million. Which, as you can see, it is currently holding at about 4 million. I actually have it set up so this is the actual number that it's actually inputting. I don't know why that's different from this number, but this is the actual number that it's trying to put through. And, well, that wasn't quite enough. That's just kind of kicking down the road. Kicking the can down the road. It still suffered the same problem of the containment field strength would just continuously go down the further things went along, which not ideal. So I needed to come up with a better solution because I wanted to hold it around. I wanted to hold the containment field strength around like 10%, and obviously I can't do that if the containment field strength requires more than that to hold at 10%. So I went looking into the equation, or I went looking into the source code for this at the equations, and what was I saying? Went looking through the source code at the equations for this, and I realized that the amount of power required to maintain the containment strength at a given percentage is the result of the temperature and the energy saturation over here. Can't really do a whole lot about the temperature, but I can control the saturation. So if we just, hopefully this is the correct terminal. Okay, yeah, that looks like that's the correct one. All right. So over here. Again. go all day without talking, and then something when I talk, throat really doesn't like it. Okay, so what is this? That's the display. Okay. Here's the control. Okay, so made some changes here, some minor ones that aren't really worth going into depth detail, like the fuel target here, just have it pull out no power. The power put in is actually still calculated the same way. It's just my brain stopped working. Drain. How am I calculating shield drain? What is shield drain? I don't remember. Okay, shield drain is field drain. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly what field drain is, to be honest with you. But I know if I divide it by this number, I get essentially this number. I mean, technically it's this number, but the way I have it set up, it's more of this number. So I'm calculating this number completely independently, just to kind of be on the safe side, rather than projecting what I think the power input should be. I am figuring out what the power input should actually be and then going based off that. So this number is actually slightly higher than my target number. As you can see, it has the little 16 on the end, but if I pull up the terminal, and then where's my terminal? There it is. If I go all the way to the very top, this is the actual target number. So we're currently actually injecting a bit more than the target input is, but that's fine. Everything's good. I don't mind that little bit. It doesn't have to be exact. Anyway, so we actually control this by controlling how much power we're pulling out of the energy saturation, which is calculated up here. So we have this slow burn check here. It's just basically the fuel check again, but slightly higher. And once we hit, like, it's fuel target plus 10 units. So once we hit that point, we set the saturation target to 95%. So that it reduces the rate at which it's consuming, so that way we don't overshoot the fuel target by too much. Actually, I'm happy that I'm streaming again. Okay. So, have this equation here. This 10 whatever, I just pulled straight from the source code. I have absolutely no idea why it's there, but it is. So we're using it because that's what's used in the source code. And from here, I'm able to figure out this calculates essentially what the saturation needs to be for the power to be my target input rate and the shield percentage. So It's been like a week or two since I've looked at this, so my brain's kind of trying to reprocess, trying to figure out what's going on with it again. So we have temp drain. What is temp drain? Temp drain factor. I think that's the direction the temperature is going in. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure what that is. Again, a lot of this I just pulled from the source code. I don't fully understand what the source code is doing. This is just the values. But yeah, so this overall just figure out what the saturation needs to be to make the input target rate what I want it to be at the shield percentage that I want it to be at. And as we can kind of see from here, it's not exact for some reason. It's a little bit higher than what my math says it should be, but that's fine. It's close enough. And with this, I have 9 of these currently running simultaneously. Yep. Oh, I suppose I could kind of demonstrate this working by adjusting the numbers a bit here. I'll just move this somewhere. Where can I put this? I can probably move that there like that. Okay, now let me find my actual terminal. Hopefully this doesn't actually blow up in my face. Go to the very top. Can we see the number? We can, in fact, see the number. Okay, so I'm going to reduce this number, and when I do, you'll see that the energy saturation will shoot up. Percentage should end up right where it currently is, but it will have a lower field input rate. So if I set that to 3 million and save it, save it, there we go. Oop. Saturation went up. It's currently adjusting to where it needs to be to maintain that. And it will find a spot to hold steady. And as you can see, the field input rate is 3 million. I can adjust that again. Oop, nope, wrong one. We'll set that to 1 million, just kind of go extreme. Save that. To be honest with you, this is held way steadier than I was expecting it to be. I was expecting there would be a bit more of a fluctuation with that. Now, the reason why this is fluctuating, going back down, is because the temperature is going down. And so this is responding or changing with the temperature to try to compensate for the temperature to maintain the containment field strength percentage at the target power input. And now if I just do that and save it, and boom, right back to where we were. Okay, now let's see if I can put this back into the center of the screen. Transform. Center to screen. There we go. Okie dokie. And we don't really need to see that anymore. Now, admittedly, a couple of times when I've, well, more than a couple of the times when I tested that, it would actually crash the server. So I'm really glad that it didn't crash the server while I was demonstrating that. Which brings us to the next issues that I've been dealing with. So sometimes when I sit idle at the dragon farm, this will crash. This will crash the server. I don't know why. I suspect what's happening is that I have too many calculations going on per tick, so the server is it's seeing that like a lot of the time is being spent on integrated dynamics, so it like cuts off part of it, and this can't handle that, so it just crashes the server. Then when I boot the server back up, because this is what caused it to crash, nothing part of this integrated dynamic system actually is working. So it's not putting in power or taking power out of the draconic reactors, which cause them to overload. Fun stuff. And then I have this other issue where when the server starts to boot up, power is not being transferred into the draconic reactors, or, well, really pulled out of it either. And I actually had to set up a script that's run on the first tick of the server being loaded up or being run that does tick freeze to try to debug that. And what I discovered is the induction matrix here. Well, I suppose mechanism multi-block structures in general do not assemble themselves into a building when the server starts. It actually takes, I think this takes about 13 or so ticks before it actually becomes a complete building, which is kind of weird to me. Like, why does it go down for why does it take 13 ticks for it to become a building? Why can't mechanism just do that all on the first tick? So what that means is that the power that this would normally provide is not available to run the reactors. And without that power input, the reactor containment field obviously goes down. And and they go boom. So to try to compensate for that, I made these two. Now, you'll notice that like one is significantly larger than the other. This is actually as big that I can get these things. You can combine the integrated dynamics energy batteries to make bigger batteries. So like if you take two of them, combine them together, you get one that's twice as big. And you can just keep doing that until you get them to about this size. And there's enough power between these two to run the reactors for 1 second, which is about 20 ticks. So these two can run the reactors for about 20 ticks, which is enough for them to survive the initial startup. It's like this is really distracting me. Get rid of that. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So these things can provide the power to the reactors when the server is initially starting up, which kind of solves that little issue. Not fully, but we'll get into that in a second. I've set up these things to have a priority. So like what is this? I think, okay, this is input, this is output. So this one pulls power from the induction matrix and has priority of 1, which is higher than the battery, so it will always try to pull power from here first. And this one puts power back into the induction matrix and has a priority of -1, so it will always try to put power into the little battery things before putting it in there, maintaining the charge in this, which is good. Also, during that initial boot up phase, this gives it some place to put power. So when it's pulling power out of the reactors, it can put the power into these. And that actually allows them to go for a bit longer than the 20 ticks. Actually, in theory, you could just run indefinitely off those. But a lot of the power would, well... Actually, it would naturally slow down the reactors, kind of make up for that. So it might be fine. Anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell. As you can see, I have a fair amount of power. This induction matrix is actually completely full now. It's 16 by 15 by 16 block inside is the energy storage ones. I'm not even sure what they're called. Providers. Ultimate induction providers. And the top layer, which is 16 by 1 by 16, is the induction cell. No, other way around. Okay. So the 16 by 1, or no, 16 by 15 by 16 are the induction cells, and the 16 by 1 by 16 is the induction providers. So it can really input and output a lot and store quite a bit. All right. And I guess next we will just move on to the part that I've kind of been working on for the past few weeks. I have been setting up this reactor. Well, I suppose the reactor itself only took like a couple days to actually get set up. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So, have the reactor here. How do I start this off? I've not really been able to find a lot of good information on the mechanism reactor. Like how much fuel it actually takes, what is required to run it. But after a little bit, I finally realized I have this maximum burn rate. This is pretty much the only number I really have to work with. And so I did some calculations here. So if we look at the recipe for coolant, okay, so for every 1 millibucket of fissile fuel, it requires 50 buckets of sodium, and I've decided to use sodium for coolant. So that's what we're going with. Now, based on that, the maximum burn rate, which honestly we'll probably never actually achieve because I suspect that is like meltdown levels, would require this amount of coolant per tick. So that's what, 96,000 buckets per tick of coolant. And if we look at the superheated sodium, 10 millibuckets of superheated sodium heats up 1 millibucket of water, and the 1 millibucket of water turns into 1 millibucket of steam. So that kind of makes calculation of that easy. Yes. So kind of having a little bit of a brain fart here. Okay, so I put the reactor in its own little compact machine, so if it ever goes kaboom or something like that, it's kind of contained. Down here is kind of where I've set up the made the setup to handle that, to process it. So this thing here, click on it. It What's that? Okay, so basically, this number, and this number all need to be bigger than this number. So we got 9.6 thousand buckets per tick, and it can store way more than 9.6 thousand buckets. It can hold 10 times that in steam, which is kind of surprising because, like, so with the thing here, what dictates how much it can hold of water or steam is this top chamber dictates how much steam it can hold, and the bottom chamber dictates how much water it can hold. And I guess steam takes up significantly less volume, because, like, that's quite a bit more, even though it's, like, just 2 blocks tall. Yeah. And, well, it has the ability to boil more than 10.6 thousand buckets per tick, which is good. So this should be able to handle 100% of the coolant, regardless of how much we're actually burning, which should be good. And I have it set up so the water comes from this sink here. The integrated dynamics can actually move practically unlimited amounts, so don't have to worry about throughput issues there. And that'll just keep the thing full. Water will get moved into this, or the steam will get moved into this dynamic tank for kind of to act as kind of a buffer. And it'll go into this turbine. Now, the turbine itself was kind of a pain in the ass to actually figure out. So there's a few things that actually affect what it can handle, and try to remember this. So max flow here is how much steam per tick it can handle, and as long as we have more than 9.6 thousand, we're good, which we do. But an interesting thing about the mechanism turbine is the size of the turbine does not have any effect on the flow at all. So this is how much it's going to be trying to do regardless of the size of the turbine. But the turbine size does affect how much power it outputs. So if you want to convert as much of the steam into electricity as possible, you need the longest possible turbine, which I believe I have here. And the size of the lower chamber, as well as the I'm not sure what those things are called. What are those things called? Pressure dispenser. So the size of the chamber, of the inner chamber here, so not including like the frame, dictates, it is a limiting factor in dictating the flow that it can handle, but it wasn't where I was bottlenecked. Like, it can handle, apparently, oh, why, wow, what is with this frame droppage? Okay, so it can apparently handle quite a bit of flow just by itself, but the bottleneck for me was these turbine vent things, and that is ultimately what dictated how big this thing had to be. As you can see, I've completely covered the top and the sides with turbine vents, and like any smaller, and it just did not have enough flow. And if I click on this, you can see that the vents are what's limiting me here. So But this thing should be able to handle the entirety of the theoretical output, which is good. And obviously, it also needs a capacity that's higher than what it can than the flow rate, but that's also not really an issue. I'm not really sure what else to say here. I think we kind of covered everything. I'm not really interested in recovering the steam and converting that back into water, because our water source is a sink. We don't really need to do that. There are things that you can add to this that would allow you to recover that water, but I don't really see any reason to do so, so I'm just not bothering with it. Alright, I'll be right back. I'm back. Okay, so yeah, so guess we should probably talk about these things. So this is a lot of material to be moving per tick, and I was struggling to come up with something that can do that amount, because it's going to be in a gaseous form. If it was a liquid or something like that, I could easily just use integrated dynamics. But alas, it is not in a gaseous form, so really limits what I can make use of. If I was to use like mechanism pipes, I would need something like 300. Oop. Come on. Nope. I'm trying to read this. Let's see. Did I calculate that? Oh, this is calculations for this. And this was the calculations for this. I'd needed about 221 vents to make the turbine thing work. Okay, that's for that. Nope, okay, I didn't write it down. Alright, so I need about 300 mechanism pipes in order to move that much steam, which is slightly less than ideal. So I did a lot of Googling, and didn't really find any good answers. And then I finally just kind of gave up and asked Grok. And Grok suggested using applied energistics stuff, saying that it can handle millions of buckets per tick. I was not able to find any sort of source that corroborated that, so it may or may not be true. But I guess we're gonna find out. Let me see. I thought I had a bunch of flux things here. No, do I not? All right. Just go ahead and just give me 10 for now. I'll figure it out. Okay, so that, set it to home. Yeah, so in theory, these will push trap tests. I might have to specify what it's moving, which is annoying. In fact, I'm probably going to have to do that. Since I don't think these will work. So this will be Steam. Oop. Surprised that's not actually consuming a lot of juice. I expected it to require more power than that. Really shouldn't need to do this one since there's only one thing it's going to be able to output, but whatever. I'll do that anyway. And then here... import, export. So this will be sodium. This will be superheated sodium. And this will be just regular cooled sodium. Yes. All right, and you know what? Let's go look at the sodium. So this is what took so long. This is kind of a waste product. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it. But I didn't want to just throw it away. I could have, but forgot about Wither. I wasn't really sure where to stick these, so I just kind of stuck them in here. Since I had space. So this seems like a lot of sodium, and I suppose it is, but it also actually is not. Originally, I was trying to fill up a 3x3x3 dynamic tank, and then I did some calculations as to how long that would actually last. So a 3x3x3 dynamic tank lasted for something like 0.4 ticks, so not even a full tick. No, that can't be right. Maybe I'm thinking of seconds. 0.4 seconds. Yeah, it's probably that sounds more accurate. So 0.4 seconds would be a 3x3x3 dynamic tank. So I opted for a little bit bigger, and this is enough coolant to run the reactor at full tilt for, I think it was like 45 seconds. So it is a lot of sodium, but it's really not. And I have this here. I made this and started filling it with fuel before I actually knew, before I had found the number telling me how much fuel it was actually going to burn through. Yeah, so I was expecting it to require like possibly hundreds of buckets per tick. So I built this and was just going to fill it up with fuel. After I realized that that was lunacy, I stopped that and I'm just going to drain this out and remove it. Just have it go directly from the thing. Uh, yes. Alright. So, so this is... It doesn't require, in a sense, like 2 buckets per tick for this. The pressurized tubes for mechanism are more than able to handle this. That's what I've got for that. And the coolant will be handled by this. Just do this. Turn this on. And... Right. Okay, so import bus. Well, that one's already set up. Export bus. That is also set up, but for some reason it's... Oh. Yeah. Okay. And that is with... Yeah, that is with full upgrades. Well, there's one more upgrade that we could probably apply to it. It's not speed. This. That is not a good rate at which this thing was just going at, which probably means that this is the applied energistics is not actually going to do it. And admittedly, I strongly suspected that what Grok had told me was wrong. I just don't have a better plan. Now, if it wasn't a mechanism gas that I was trying to work with, then it would be piece cake to actually do. But since it is a mechanism gas, I'm really limited as to what I can work with. I may have to rethink this whole thing and continue this another stream or something. I don't really have a good plan for this. What's taking so long here? Is it like currently doing stuff here? No. Okay. Why is that taking so long? Let's restart the computer thing here. There it goes. There it goes. Okay. Wait, it's not down there. It's up here. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's going to be a little bit of an issue. I'm going to have to fast track that a little bit. There it is. What the heck? Okay. There we go. Greater acceleration. Hopefully this will actually do it. If not, I'm gonna have to rethink this whole thing. That is not correct. Oh, that's that is just for this thing. Okay. Okay. I don't know what to do about this. I'm gonna have to rethink this whole thing. Because, like... Gonna need to move a lot of material here. And this is clearly not up for that, so... Well, that's kind of a bummer. Alright, yeah, I'm just gonna end the stream here and think about this a bit. I have no idea how I'm gonna solve this problem. Pipe has... Right? So pipe has these gas pipe things here. Combine that with that. That could give me something somewhat decent. I don't know. You know, let's try this out here. That's the wrong button. I think I might have some. Yeah, I've got some here. So do that, that. Do this, this, and this. So it's piping essentially into itself here. Okay, that's 40 buckets per tick. That's pretty okay. That's how many do we actually need to move? 96,000. Okay, so just get a calculator here. Okay, so 96,000 divided by like 40. Is that 40? Did I read that right? That is 40 buckets per tick. So I would need 2,400 of these things to work. Ah. Okay, that's obviously not gonna work. Is that tubes? Are these tubes? Yeah, so I'd be better off using the mechanized ones, which can handle 1,024 buckets. Oh no, it can handle 256 buckets per tick. Many times more, so... Yeah, so that's not viable at all for this. I don't know. Yes. What is that? Schematic. Okay, interesting. Oh. I might very well just have to make 300. But I'd have to do that for both input and output, and that's just going to be really freaking annoying. Oh, for the boiler, it's gonna be even more than that because it's gonna have to deal with the steam as well. I suppose for the steam it just required 9 of them. That's not too bad. I mean, more than I would care for, but like not too terrible. But the sodium is going to require just an absurd amount. All right, well, it's going to require me to do quite a bit of boring, tedious work, so I guess I'm just going to end the stream and I'll figure it out. So thank you for watching. Hopefully, I'll come up with a good answer.